This is the Lydian Spin with Lydia Lunch and Tim Dahl, and Simon Slater's in there somewhere. Tim, you're off in Germany right now, and
I'm in Germany.
I'm
Yes,
in
and you're in.
Brooklyn. Yeah, I'm in Brooklyn.
Has it cooled down at all?
Hell no.
I mean, it's you see, the thing is, even because Germany is on like really having a hot summer, but it's still, even if it's like in the 90s, at night it cools down. There's a breeze. There's all that stuff going on.
Yeah,
Where New
yeah.
York, it's not the
Look,
case.
I was cleaning up yesterday, and I'm like, it smells like something's on fire. And then I realized I smelled like I was on fire. I'm like,
Whoa.
oh, I'm like, I run hot, but I'm like, I literally smell like I was on fire. I'm like, I'm fucking hot. I gotta stop this shit. Get
Yeah, I
back,
mean, yesterday.
get back to the AC.
Yeah, exactly. Yesterday was fucking awful.
Anyway,
Uh,
welcome to wonderful life that we lead. Anyway, when you're an asshole, you got to expect to get some shit thrown at you sometimes. So
sure.
when Jim Jordan, I can't think of a bigger
Oh God.
asshole, right?
Yeah.
And other Republican lawmakers got feces in the mail. The police began an investigation into the harmless prank. Now, the man who sent the poo has been arrested and identified as a former court mediator. According to Trib Live, police arrested 77-year-old Richard Stanley
Whoa,
from,
77.
I know, it's never too old to pull a prank, from Mogador, Ohio on Friday under charges of sending injurious articles as non-mailable. Now, according to the report, the poo, while organic, can sometimes cause injury and is hazardous material and thus a federal violation. Maximum prison sentence 1 year, possible $100,000 fine. Quote, the feces mailed in early July prompted investigation by the U.S. Postal Inspection or Postal Inspection Service. But investigators said Stanley has been sending such letters since August 2021 to elected officials in Washington, Kentucky, California, and Ohio.
So the FBI was literally on his ass.
Totally. The employees in the mailroom at the Ohio State House intercepted about 25 letters that were deemed fake. Postal inspectors did an investigation and surveillance of his home after a tip from another court employee that he might be involved in the prank. The letter was intercepted, and the one contaminated with feces, though it isn't clear whether it was animal or human. I think that should be pretty easy to tell. Anyway, Senate GOP spokesman John Fortney called the incident a type of biohazard and an attack on the lawmakers. He said, it doesn't just stop with people it's directed towards. This is something that could potentially affect every single employee at the Ohio State House, regardless of political affiliation. But like I say, if you're a fucking asshole, Jim Jordan, expect to get a bunch of shit thrown at
Well,
you
that's the
sometimes.
thing. If you're like the filter for basically the elite rich to basically do some kind of quote unquote diplomacy and just sell the society into the ground, I mean, you have to take your punches. I mean, you are the
Right.
punching bag.
Hello.
I mean, I
That's
mean, I mean, in terms of sentences, I mean, 1 year, Mark Damico, whatever, of Pennsylvania, is being or has been sentenced 5 years.
whoa.
So he and his girlfriend were kind of like, oh, life sucks, blah, blah, blah. And they came up with this fraudulent GoFundMe thing where it was like, oh, I was at a gas station, my last $20 in my apartment, blah, blah, blah. We're looking for $10,000. Well, for whatever fucking reason, that thing went viral and they suddenly got basically $500,000 fucking dollars. And of course they didn't know what to do. Like, oh, what do we do? So they like bought a BMW. They fucking went, that's where they fucked up. They went to the casino and all that shit. But yeah, I mean, it's fraud and they got busted. But I have to be honest, a lot of the GoFundMe's, a lot of them are kind of these kind of more looser hypothetical things why someone needs to be funded. Like, why is that any less fraudulent? And then, of course, if you want to talk about fraud, I mean, let's talk about Wall Street. So, not that I'm for this guy, but this,
let's
like,
talk
come
about
on.
all the campaign crying for
Yeah,
contributions, especially now.
exactly.
Look, I'm gonna have to start a GoFundMe for my documentary Artist Depression, Anxiety, and Rage because I'm just gonna have to, and that's not a fraud. I mean, unfortunately, depression is a very real subject. Now, on a cheerier note, now Tim, you know I'm not traditional I can't stand most traditions.
Fair.
But
There's some traditions you like. There are some traditions you like.
That's true. I like getting presents every day, which means it's my birthday every day. But anyway, in San Pedro Pumuelo in Mexico, a small town Mexican mayor married his alligator bride in a colorful ceremony as traditional music rang out and revelers danced while imploring the indigenous leader to seal the nuptials with a kiss. So the mayor, Victor Hugo Sosa, obliged more than once during Thursday's wedding, bending down to plant his lips on the small alligator's snout, which had unfortunately, in my opinion, been tied shut. Although if I was going to get married, trust me, somebody's mouth would be tied shut, presumably to avoid unwanted fighting. Now, the ritual marriage probably dates back centuries to pre-Hispanic times among Oaxaca and the indigenous communities there, right? It's like a prayer pleading for nature's bounty. So, quote, "We ask nature for enough rain, for enough food, that we have fish in the river," said the mayor. Okay, so I guess he's asking for more sex with an alligator. And by the way, the alligator was dressed in a traditional white wedding dress.
Oh my God. How do they do that?
The 7-year-old reptile, referred to as Little Princess, is believed to be a deity representing Mother Earth and her marriage.
Well, now we're talking.
Leader, symbolizing the joining of humans with the divine. If you consider an alligator divine, I must be the queen of all ecstasy. So trumpets blared and drums provided a festive beat, and locals carried the alligator bride in their arms through the village streets as men fanned it with their hats. And quote, the grandmother, not of the alligator, but who organized the wedding, "It gives me so much happiness and makes me so proud of my roots."
Oh my God. Well,
weird. I wonder what's going to happen on the honeymoon.
Well, he's going to be crushed, and his crush turned into being crushed, and I'm going to roll with it.
Tim, I got to ask you, if you were to marry an animal, I know it wouldn't be a hippo, but what might that be? Good one.
Off the top of my head, an anteater.
Nice. Because you share so much in common with it.
No. I mean, I've looked that up before, which was like people are into exotic pets and stuff, and people get anteaters, of course, in Florida and shit like that. And that's not like a small pet. I mean, those things get up to like 7 fucking feet.
I mean, I could use it for the spider mites I found running around my bedroom the other day.
I mean, they kind of just like bloom. They're like not aggressive. They have these like long snouts that have this insane tongue that comes out. But like, if it's 7 feet, that snout, their nose must be like 2.5 feet. Well, I mean, it must be insane.
Look, having lived with a sloth or two before, I certainly wouldn't pair up with one of those again.
Fair, well, sloth. So yeah, that's a whole other thing.
Anyway, a room dubbed prison for the super rich leaves people creeped out. So people are getting super freaked out by an indoor beach filled with half-naked men and women. It's a festival called Sun and Sea Operatic, which transports an indoor beach to various art galleries.
Oh, God.
Onlooking spectators will watch a load of people in their swimming suits explore the relationship we have with our planet.
Okay, actually, they should be busted for fraud.
Right, well, the spectacle is meant, hey, anything that's creepy, I'm all for it, but this is just
fair enough.
The spectacle is meant to demonstrate that, quote, the threat climate change presents and the dangers we're faced if it's ignored. So the original and official description of the event reads as such: a crowded beach, the burning sun, bright bathing suits and sweaty brows and legs, tired limbs sprawled easily across the sea of towels, the rumble of a volcano or an airplane or a speedboat, the squeal of children, laughter, the sound of an ice cream van in the distance, sunbathers sing languid songs of worry, of boredom, of almost nothing. Songs of early morning flights and half-eaten sandwiches in the sand. Here's the punchline: the crinkling of plastic bags whirling in the air, then floating silently, jelly.
Get a life, people.
Below the waterline. Stories that glide between the mundane, the sinister, and the surreal. Well, the punchline is plastic bags floating silently, jellyfish-like, below the waterline. Now, this artwork, you wonder why I don't consider myself a fucking artist, has already been exhibited in Reykjavik, Moscow, and London, and it's set to go to Helsinki, Barcelona, and Lisbon. I won't be going there on my next.
Can you sell it? Is what it comes down to.
Well, somebody said it's like a prison for the super rich. Hello and goodbye. Look, you want to go to the beach, you go to the damn beach.
Well, guess what? Fucking Earth is turning into a prison for the super rich because they're isolating themselves more and more as the class divide gets greater, and so their little fucking art jerk off voyeurism is about to be realized in levels they haven't realized. So speaking of hot beach simulation, hot weather, blah blah, we've talked about this before. Actually, I think in the last episode about just the kind of fancy ice cream places, all these exotic flavors, and well, of course, England's taking it to their level.
Oh no,
the Ice Cream Project of London, and they're doing flavors like Heinz baked beans.
Wait, hold on. First of all, they are disgusting any way you fucking slice it. I mean, the thought of I love beans, fava beans, many kinds. Baked beans out of a can for breakfast with mushy tomatoes and mushrooms. It's got to be one of the worst concoctions I've ever heard of.
Oh yeah, runny eggs,
beans, baked bean ice cream,
baked ketchup, mayonnaise ice cream.
All right, I'm gonna have to top you on this. I can't even believe this, but it's true. How about a Velveetini, which is Velveeta is now making a martini that tastes like frickin' Velveeta.
Well, that's referencing there's someone on their staff is kind of being a little imaginative with that product. Because remember, there's some episodes back where I talked about the new nail polish, Velveeta nail polish that smells like Velveeta cheese. So there's someone there that's I went to art school, in fact, that's probably coming up with these ideas.
Okay, maybe eating too much Velveeta led to this next story. All right,
please.
A man's voice grew hoarse for no obvious reason. Turns out he had fungus in his throat. Over the course of a year, a man's voice grew progressively more hoarse, and his speech became shrill and grating, but he didn't know why. Upon examining the man, doctors discovered the reason. Fungus was growing in his throat. Now, he appeared to be healthy, other than that, went to a clinic in Pennsylvania that treats conditions of the head and neck. Man was in his 60s. He reported that he developed progressively worsening hoarseness, becoming like old age Tom Waits, I guess, and shortness of breath. So, of course, the previous doctor said, it's nothing. But the mouth doctor went deeper into the larynx.
It must be an ENT, but maybe.
And the doctors performed a biopsy on the tissue from the man's larynx and confirmed that it was swollen, irregular, and friable, whatever that means to the touch. Meaning, it tore easily. So they don't know exactly where these budding yeast cells came from, and this is really rare. I mean, you can get it from soil or you're
really into mushrooms these days, so maybe
that's true.
He's clearly a fun guy.
A fun guy, Drake. My mouth is agape, is all I can say.
Oh my god.
I don't know where else to go with this.
Well, let's see. Did you read about this 47-year-old, my age guy in upstate New York? Old school, like this is like an old school industrial accident kind of story. He was bringing, it was kind of like in the Adirondack, so it wasn't you kind of have to bring no one's picking up your trash. So you go to a trash place. Specifically, you went to Long Lake Garbage Transfer, whatever it's called. Anyhow, somehow I don't know. No one knows how, but there's no foul play. He got caught between the loading dock and the compactor. He basically fell into a trash compactor, and
what happened?
And
gone, baby, gone.
Like he turned into a human tube of toothpaste. That's what fucking happened.
Ouch!
I mean, he got literally his guts. He got crushed. Everything got squeezed out like squishing a bug.
Well, it's interesting because that sounds kind of like some of the art of Savage Pencil, who's our guest. Now, before we get on to him, I want to say this is a story you might like. Dolphins deliberately get high, no wonder we love them, on pufferfish nerve toxins by carefully chewing and passing them around. there's a new documentary about this, and after Fantastic Fungi and my Teacher the Octopus, and I'm thinking of doing one called My Lover the Sea Serpent.
I mean, animals like drugs. They absolutely like drugs. I mean, birds will get drunk on berries.
Catnip.
Elephants will eat all fermented fruit that's rotting. I mean,
reindeers love the red and white mushrooms.
Well, yeah, and that's a whole other story about it. That's been passed on to people.
But anyway, somebody that's done no psychedelic drugs at all is our next guest, even though his art looks incredibly psychedelic. And that would be Edwin Pouncey, also known as Savage Pencil. So this is the Lydian Spin with Lydia Lunch and Tim Dahl and Savage Pencil. This is the Lydian Spin with Lydia Lunch, Tim Dahl, and our special guest, a dear friend of mine. I haven't seen in many a moon. That'd be Edwin Pouncey, Savage Pencil. And we're here to talk to him about his illustrated and illustrious career as an underground cartoonist, writer, occasional musician, a writer who writes about musicians, amateur magician, and talk to you about some of your recent releases. It's been a long time, my friend.
Yeah, been a very long time. I don't think I've seen you since, well, the 80s? Is it the 80s? No.
We haven't
interviewed you in the 80s, I think, 81, something like that, when you were in London.
We haven't
that
changed
long.
much.
Wow.
So what have you been doing in the meantime? I know what you do. You do a lot of you've done a lot of illustrations for rock bands in the vein of Sonic Youth, the Death Valley 69, The Fall, Big Black, posters for Royal Trucks. But let's start at the beginning. I mean, you were drawing as just a wee Todd.
Yes.
God.
And what at that age? I mean, when you're really young and you're starting to draw, I mean, what were your influences then? I know what your influences became, and we'll talk about them. But just as a young little chalk in hand whippersnapper, was all this just coming out of your head?
Yeah, I think under the table with the chalk, I didn't have any influences. I was just fascinated with the fact that I have this thing in my hand. If I do this, it makes this, if you know what I mean. It sort of just happens, really. I didn't really know anything about anything, really, but I remembered liking the feeling of it, you know what I mean, that it came out. And I was kind of proud of it in the end, even though it was just a scribble.
Were you discouraged? I mean, because some could interpret some of that as vandalism, and some teachers say, for instance, if you're quote unquote doodling wherever, did anyone ever tell you to stop doing it at a young age?
Nobody knew it was there. Okay. I was a mere infant, a toddler, in nappies almost, really, with a piece of sort of sewing maker's chalk, you know what I mean? What they would use to sort of mark up a piece of cloth. So it was like me under the table with my mother's sewing chalk, just scrawling away.
You have a fascination for ladies' legs, seeing that you started under the table drawing. I had to ask.
Yeah, probably was. Yeah. Who knows what happened under that table to my poor damaged little brain. But
you were channeling as a child, and I mean, I've read that you've never done drugs, which is bizarre to any of the rest of us.
Well, I have, but I don't like them.
Well,
I never liked them.
Didn't do the right ones, I guess. But
probably didn't. What did I do? Do you want to know what I did?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Well, because your drawings are so psychedelic.
Yeah. You see, I didn't take psychedelics at all. Never took psychedelics. But I had some speed, some dexedrine, and that kept me up all night, so it kind of helped me sort of draw a lot. And then pot, which I didn't like at all because it made me really feel sleepy and giggly and stupid, and I didn't really like it very much, really. And all the people around me were stupid, doing when they were all around you, because they realized I didn't like doing it, so they made me make the joints. So I'd sort of cut up this ridiculously expensive ball of hash or something and put it all in one joint and just
Do you think that maybe if you did psychedelics, you'd suddenly start drawing straight lines?
I don't know what would have happened if I had done psychedelic. I think I would have gone mad.
You
Yes,
could, you could still do
I
them.
would be in a lunatic asylum.
You could still do them, and they're better with age, based on my research. But the question is, what about like an old-fashioned pint? Like, you can put that in the same category?
Oh yeah, I think that's a drug, isn't it? I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do like an old-fashioned pint or two. Yeah, I must admit. In fact, I had a few this afternoon, but readying myself for this wonderful interview. Yes. So.
Cheers. Savage, pencil, Edwin. Cheers to you, my friend.
So, you know what Brits are like. That's all we know what to do. That's the only thing we can do here is drink.
Well, no, drink and then fight. Oh. Or you guys like to fight after the last call.
I try not to do that though.
Oh no, I would avoid that if I lived in England altogether.
Yes, exactly.
I can't imagine you getting into a physical altercation with anyone, Edwin, at all.
Well, unfortunately, I have in the past, yeah, but not. I didn't start it. You know, they came at me, and I just sort of let them do it to me. You know, bang, and I just went on the floor and played possum.
Did you get Clockwork Orange?
I got Clockwork Orange. Yeah.
What about the classic British female last call, like the kind of spandex, and then like a regurgitated Mars bar kind of dripping down the dress? I've seen that a few times in the UK, like after last call.
Oh, really?
Well, yes.
Oh my God.
Particularly in Newcastle.
Yeah. Well, you see, I don't really go to those places anymore. You know what I mean? I'm an old geezer now, so I don't really sort of go out as much as I used to do. That sort of
so you're doodling and drawing. You know, you're a toddler with a piece of chalk in your hand. When did it actually start becoming more serious for you? And was it around the age of 12? Also, I know that music very much influenced you. When did music start influencing you and your drawing?
When I could buy records, you know, when I was I left school about 16 or something, chucked out of school, chucked into a stupid job where I was serving people in a shop, you know, in a store, a department store. Didn't really like it very much, hated it quite a lot. But I got a wage. And then I took my money home and I gave my mother some money for keep, and the rest was mine. And not really wanting to go out with anybody, you know, totally avoiding, didn't really have any friends, right? Didn't want to go really socialize, you know, didn't want to go to the dance hall or anything like that, you know what I mean? I wasn't really that too scared of girls, you know what I mean? Just sort of me in my teenage bedroom, really. So what I used to do is I used to buy an LP every week. Every week I bought an LP.
What were some of the first ones?
Well, the first one I bought was I was going to buy a copy of the Four Tops something, some stupid Four Tops LP, because I did have a friend there, and he was sort of convincing me. He was trying to convince me that the Four Tops were the greatest thing on earth. So I thought, well, I don't know much about music, so I'll try that. You know.
Do you not like the Four Tops?
They're okay. Yeah. You know.
Okay.
You're like 6. How old were you at the time you bought the Four Tops?
So I had the Four Tops in one hand, and then I was sort of just about to pay for it, and I saw this other record in the rack, and it looked really weird and nuts, and I thought, what is that? And it's The Mothers of Invention, Absolutely Free. And I thought, I'd like to listen to this. So I asked this old woman behind because then you didn't really have record stores. You had electrical shops, you know what I mean? Shops that sell electric plugs and wire and light bulbs and stuff.
Hardware stores.
Yeah. And they had a small little selection of records. So they had the Four Tops record, and they also had Absolutely Free. And I said, So I put the Four Tops. I put the Four Tops record down and asked the lady to play me The Mothers of Invention, which you could do in a stand-up booth, if you see what I'm saying. So you stood up in the booth and you listen to The Mothers of Invention. So can you imagine in a shop this old lady listening to Plastic People, oh baby, no, you're such a drag. And I'm sort of listening and going, uh-oh. And this old lady's glaring at me, you know what I mean? And eventually she says, well, do you want it? And I'm sort of terrified. I bought it. And ran home thinking, God, what have I done? I should have bought the Four Tops record.
That puts you well on your way to more weirdness.
Oh, well, in the end, because I sort of didn't really know what else to do, I just come home every night that week and put it on. And the more I heard it, the more I absolutely adored it. And, you know, it just sort of, then I sort of started a sort of long association with finding the weirdest records that I could find.
That the hardware store would carry.
Well, not just the hardware store.
And there were a lot of them around at that time, you know.
But you're also choosing it by its cover, which they tell you not to do. You literally chose the book by its cover. Well, and was that your model from that point on? Like what just looked the most interesting?
Kind of always has been, yeah.
Interesting.
Look at the cover. Wow, that's a great cover. It's got to be something brilliant in that. You know what I mean? 9 times out of 10, there is something brilliant in the record.
What do you think are some of your favorite record covers? And then you could tell us also the record covers that you have actually done. What were some of your favorite record covers? If you can pull them out of that vast memory bank of the Rolodex of your mind.
Well, anything by Cal Schenkel, obviously, you know, who did the Mothers and stuff, and Trampmaster Replica. That Trampmaster Replica is one of my all-time favorite covers. I really like the beautiful kind of cowboy cover that's on Quicksilver Messenger's Happy Trails. Do you know that one?
I had to let me look that up.
I know, I do not.
Happy Trails by Quicksilver Messenger Service. They're a sort of San Francisco beat combo. Yeah. God, there's so many though.
You were going all over the place with music when you were very young. Did you then slip into glam? Did you then start specializing, or how did your taste change when you had a bit more consciousness about what you're doing there?
Just an insane curiosity for anything musical, really. And I just really try anything. I would try anything. I must have been through, you know, we were talking about, I don't take drugs. Well, I think music to me was a drug. You know, I just had to have everything and a lot of it, you know, to sort of understand what was going on, how this whole thing was happening and everything like that, you know.
And you're talking about when we had the information of magazines and weeklies that actually some of which you came to write for, like Sounds or Melody Maker, New Musical Express. I mean, we had, you know, in the early 70s, there was Cream. There were various magazines that could kind of push you, guide you in a direction.
Yeah, well, they did. The music press was your guide. It did sort of show you which areas you should maybe try, you know what I mean? And sometimes the reviews were quite terrible, you know, they were like almost like sentence reviews. But you out of that sentence, you had to sort of get some idea. Is it worth my £1.13 and 6pence this week? You know what I mean?
Well, especially British press has a way at that point, at least. I mean, I'm talking maybe like the late 70s to the I don't know how long it went on. Love you 1 week, hate you the next week.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's all that.
Very British. That was very British.
Yeah. There's all that. You've kind of got to make your own mind up, though, haven't you? Really?
Well, everyone. Yeah. At the end of the day, did getting into
a stupid rock critic anyway, you know what I mean?
Well, that's, you know, as the industry goes down and as periodicals are all going out of business, I couldn't imagine a worse profession right now.
Yeah, but there were a lot of great rock writers at the time that you also started doing rock writing. There were a lot of people that came up that were really great, both in the US and in the UK. I mean, there were a lot of really dedicated, interesting people that could really discourse.
I was only joking, Lydia.
I hate most of the fuckers. What are you talking about?
Did you let your Zappa and all this stuff, was that a gateway for you to go even further into the avant-garde, whether jazz or in the quote unquote classical 20th century stuff?
It's kind of like when I finished or thought I'd finish with sort of rock or avant-garde rock, I thought, well, where can I go now? So I sort of thought, and I read this article by a really good rock writer, you know, a really good music writer called Richard Cook, in I think it was NME or Mel, you know, yes, it would have been NME, and he wrote about Albert Ayler, and it just sounded so interesting that I had to go and find an Albert Ayler record. And when I found the Albert Ayler record, that was just like a huge door opening. It said, oh, so this is what Zappa and Beefheart were going on about, you know what I mean? This is what they were trying to achieve in a weird way. So it sort of swung open the door to that kind of thing. And I just started collecting free jazz records non-stop. which was quite good really, because then at that time, about in the 80s, nobody was listening to free jazz.
Oh, you can get it literally for free at that point. It was real free jazz.
Walk in there, dump, say, you know, I was earning at Sounds. So I'd go in there and dump £100 on the counter, and I'd come out with about nearly 150 free jazz LPs.
Amazing.
And
Amazing.
they've been laughing at you as this, you know, there they are sort of at the counter listening to, I don't know, Art Blakey or something.
But this is the same. Totally.
But not realizing the treasure that I was walking out.
Same in the States. And then also with the stuff like Boulez or Stockhausen or Cage or any of the new music through composed writers, the same thing. You get it for, actually you kind of still can get a lot of that stuff for pretty cheap.
Edwin, I have to say, mentioning Albert Ayler, I could understand how that is almost a musical equivalent to some of your drawings.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it is, there's something about the energy of it, how frantic, how weird, how just in its own category that it is. And I can really see a correlation between you finding Albert Ayler. You had already had your style anyway, your craft outside. So let's go from Zappa to Zap Comics.
Yes.
Now we're talking.
When did you discover the American comics that I know influenced them that you liked, for instance, like R. Crumb or Robert Williams, dear friend of mine, and all of the Zap and Last Gasp comics? When did you discover those? How did you discover those, being in the UK?
Yeah, it's kind of a story I've told before, but I'll tell you it as well. My mother and father owned a newsagent store, where we lived. We lived in a newsagent shop, okay, and we had premises above the shop. And as a they used to get magazines in and everything like that. And one day, one magazine came in. It was called Art and Artists magazine. It was a well-known, highbrow UK arts journal. It cost 7 6pence in about 1969, which is an enormous amount of money. But this one issue had on the front of it, for a start, they called it Art and Artists, and there was this picture of all these pirates killing each other on the front of it, and it was by S. Clay Wilson, of course, and the actual title of the magazine had been lettered in by Robert Crumb. And I just sort of thought, what is this? I just started looking at it, and I thought, my God, oh no, 7 6pence. So I just sort of had to buy it. So they went all my pocket money in one fell swoop. And
how much does that equal today? We have no idea.
It's probably about £50 or
wow.
Yeah.
But a good investment, though.
But it was a very good investment.
Do you still have that?
Oh yes, I do.
Might be worth hundreds by now.
And what I did was I sort of read it it became a Bible, really. I didn't really understand it. It was like this highbrow kind of art talk, you know, sort of art speak kind of rubbish, you know what I mean? But I kind of read it and read in between it, and there was pictures in it as well. And I just made my decision there and then. It's in a high class art magazine, you know, must be money in it. They always ask me what I want to do with my life. This is what I'm going to do. So I proudly announced my parents.
Well, wait. What's weird is that it wasn't a highbrow art magazine at all.
It was.
That they were presented in that, because probably in America, they weren't being presented in that kind of light. I mean, all the Zap comics, S. Clay Wilson, and all of them were very underground. So it's interesting that this magazine featured them on the cover in the late 60s.
Absolutely amazing. And like they were putting up against people like Harry Who, you know, the Harry Who movement in Chicago and things like that. Sort of comparing this sort of very, I suppose what they must have thought as being art brut, you know what I mean? That kind of thing.
Well, a few people had the eye for like Crumb, and well, they benefited greatly because of that. It's amazing how he's still kind of dismissed. I don't even get it, but that's besides the point. Do you know Robert?
Well, we've met once or twice. I've interviewed him once or twice, yeah, and I sort of I met him a few times, but not huge, you know, going out for a pint kind of thing, you know what I mean? But I have met quite a lot of the underground comics people, which I'm very, very pleased about. You know, I met Wilson while he was alive. I met Spain Rodriguez while he was alive. I obviously know Robert Williams quite well, and so does Lydia. Gilbert Shelton's a really nice guy. I know, people like that.
And a lot of these out of the West Coast. I mean, San Francisco and Robert Williams, LA. It was really the same way that there are musical movements that happen in certain cities at certain times. That was kind of which came to be known as lowbrow art movement that was happening on the West, specifically on the West Coast of the US at that time.
Yeah. And and all the juxtapose thing happened then, didn't it? And all that stuff.
And Juxtapose magazine was really great for showcasing what's considered lowbrow, but so many talented people were presented in that magazine.
Absolutely.
Do you like the Harry Who scene?
I absolutely adore the Harry Who's. Yeah, they're great. Yeah, brilliant. And that was my kind of introduction to them through this magazine. And it's taken me ages and ages to track down any original publications by them, but I got a few, that sort of thing.
Any particular favorites?
Carl Wortham, I think, is really good. People
who just died, right? Or is...
I think
Carl was my art professor.
Oh, really?
That's Simon. Simon
Slater, these Savage Pencils.
He was my favorite art professor.
Right.
He not only being a fabulous, enormously creative mind, he was just a wonderful human being.
Right. Yeah. Wow.
And it's too bad he died.
And again, we haven't mentioned this term in a long time, but this is the complete point of the Lydian spin, is this connective tissue, that it's so weird that something is mentioned from you that most people don't know. And Simon Slater pops in, have an intimate connection.
That's really good. Great. Really good. Well, I never had the honor of meeting any of the Harry Who people or Carl or anybody, but I really, really do like their work. And there was a really good little show over here just a couple of years ago at a sort of an art school near me. And they did a pretty good job of putting on, 2 floors of Harry Who stuff, original artwork and everything. It was really good.
So let's get back to you now. You're, of course, I mean, in the UK. Were you living? Did you live in London? Was your news agent?
I was living in Leeds.
Okay, in Leeds,
West Yorkshire.
Okay, and so
the north of England.
Oh yes.
So we're going through the late '60s. We know you're getting weird already.
Yep.
Glam hits.
Yeah.
How does that affect you?
By that time, I'm out of Leeds altogether. Hooray, I've escaped. Escaped Leeds and moved south to a place called Colchester in Essex, where I was hoping to get into art college. And glam hit about then. So we'd be saying, well...
Early 70s.
Leave
it vague.
Early 70s.
Did you,
no, it's a bit later on, isn't it?
No.
73?
Yeah. Well, that's early to me.
Right.
Yeah.
72. Yeah, 72.
That's early.
So Bowie would have come out, Ziggy Stardust would be out, and so would Roxy Music and everything like that. So,
what a great period of English music.
And it was fantastic.
So impactful.
So we just love that, really. Yeah, we love that. And then there was all this other stuff happening around that, stupid prog rock and
oh, you mean you didn't like prog rock?
Oh, I loved it. Yeah, I loved it.
So you called it stupid, but you still loved it.
Well, it is kind of stupid.
Drop some names. I need to know this sordid history of yours. What prog rock? Genesis?
Oh, I love them.
I saw
King Crimson.
Oh yeah, I love that. Yeah, that isn't stupid. No, that's
well, I mean, there's more avant-garde, there's more interesting prog rock, and then there's more dragons and swords, fantasy art, prog rock. So it depends which side you tip towards, or maybe you like all of it.
Yeah,
Hawkwind.
Oh God, yeah, it's brilliant.
I wrote to Hawkwind, I think in 70. I must have been 12. And 6 months later, got a message back from their fan club. I was already over them, though. I'm like, I don't care anymore.
You have him today, in fact. Isn't Lemmy the first punk, don't you think?
Oh, no, I think Little Richard.
Oh, well, all right.
Sorry about that, but...
Hard to say. I mean, you could argue the Beatles were kind of...
I'm talking...
We're prog rock.
I'm talking UK punk.
I'm not talking about punk. I'm talking about prog rock. Going back to prog rock. But Lemmy's the first punk? That's a hard one to say. I don't know.
UK punk.
I don't know what year.
Just
I mean,
UK punk.
possible.
I mean, yeah, whatever.
I'm not. I'm not going to put it. I'm not going to. I'm out of that debate. I don't care.
All right. Yeah. Okay.
So, all right, glam hits. You're still drawing. You're going to. You get a student loan and you get into college for 4 years.
Yeah.
What did that teach you? What did that do for you?
I was in the graphic design department, so it taught me a lot about graphic design and you know, how to put my own comics out, and you know, how to do that, really, you know, how to lay out things.
Is that when you started self-publishing your own stuff?
Yeah,
in
that's
college?
exactly what it did. Yeah, the sort of mimeograph stuff, you know, cranking it out, putting it. Silk screen department went and did my own book covers for my poetry books. Put them out. You know, it was like the 3-day week, so the lights would suddenly go out because there wasn't the electricity in England. And during that time, I'd go around with like a handful of my little poetry books and sneak into bookshops and stick them on the shelves and walk out.
It's called shop dropping instead of shoplifting. You shop drop your own books.
Shop dropped instead of shoplift. Just to confuse people, so they came and said, "What's this? How much is it?" And people wouldn't know what it was, you know. So. Other
than Bukowski, what poetry or writing was influencing you when you started releasing your poetry books?
Oh God! Well, the lyrics of Blue Oyster Cult.
You know, I did cover with Thurwell.
Lovecraft. Lots of horror novels.
Don't Fear the Reaper. You know, I did cover that with Thurwell. Don't Fear the
Reaper.
Yeah,
fantastic.
It was amazing.
Yeah,
okay, H.P. Lovecraft.
Yeah, horror. You know, English horror writers, Arthur Machen, people like that. The Pan Book of Horror Stories, mostly stuff like that. And then I was like, you know, into your usual stuff like Rambo and stuff like that, and Blake and John Donne, classics. You know, those kind of people.
When did you get your first writing gig for the British music weeklies?
When they told me that if I wanted to be a layout artist that sounds, I also had to write. I said, what? I said, well, you've got to go out and do this rock writing stuff. I said, okay, what shall I write about? I said, what do you like? I said, well, at that time I was really into reggae, and I was really into the reggae DJ scene at the time. And he said, well, just go do them then, you know, go find some DJs and ask them something. So I went and interviewed Clint Eastwood and General Smiley for, you know, it was sort of like local in a way. And we talked about their records on Greensleeve Records. And then I started off writing loads and loads of stuff about reggae.
Were those guys, because I know they would play reggae between the punk sets often, were the DJs actually authentic reggae DJs they bring into those shows, or they just would play reggae because that was kind of in the air?
Depends really. You would between rock shows. It was probably like some guy just putting his old reggae records on, you know. But you know, there were dedicated sound systems and things all going around London, probably still are, which you could go and listen to, you know, if you dared go in, because it was pretty heavy, you know.
Sure. And was the reggae scene in London at the time like around Brixton? Where was that?
South London, anywhere, you know, all over the place, really. It spanned quite a lot of areas. You know, not so much, was it up north? Well, yeah, you know, Camden, things like that.
Oh, yeah, Camden. When did you move to London, Edwin?
I moved to London in 1974, something like that. No, what am I blithering on about? 76, I think I moved to London, yeah. So, and it sort of, I arrived just when punk happened. And it hadn't, you know, the Sex Pistols hadn't got a record deal or anything, but my student digs were in South Kensington, and the King's Road was 5 minutes away. Just walk down the road. So you went down the road, and there's like the sex shop, sex shop, and all these punks walking around with safety pins for noses.
High fashion. Yeah,
exactly. So I'd hit it at the right moment, and then I found out that you could go to this place called the 100 Club, and there'd be this band called the Sex Pistols playing there every Thursday or something. So I used to go every Thursday and see them, and nobody was there. Nobody was there at all.
How awful were they?
Oh, they were fantastic. Well, they were fantastic because they had a great bass player then. They had Glenn Matlock.
Oh,
Yeah,
there you go.
sure.
There you go.
Who could play the bloody bass and hold them up, sort of thing.
Yeah.
What
other bands at that very early period? So now you're 5 minutes from Kings Road. There's the Sex Dictionary shop. Sex Pistols are playing at the 100 Club or wherever. Yeah. Who else? What was some of the most memorable early punk shows you saw?
Sort of the Damned and things like that. I remember one by Eater at the Hope and Anchor.
We just actually interviewed Andy from Eater yesterday.
Right, and they were great. And the kid drummer is fantastic. You know what I mean? I'm sorry, but I can't remember your name. But anyway, they were really good. Really good. And then we had the sort of US boom come over. You know what I mean? A bit like, so we had the Heartbreakers come and play the Roxy. That was pretty exciting with the Clash and everything like that. But there wasn't the kind of thing I liked best was what Lydia played, No Wave, and there wasn't much No Wave when in London at that time.
Wasn't anywhere, and still isn't, and that's just the way it is, because it is no wave.
Going back to Albert Eiler, I mean, at that time you have Derek Bailey and you have Evan Parker and stuff. Were you also checking out that kind of stuff?
Well, that's not till a bit later, really, because I was playing catch up at that time, so I didn't really realize half of what had already come before, if you know what I mean. So I was sort of desperately catching up on that, but I did see them eventually. Yeah, played some pretty good places as well.
Who No Wave? What about No Wave? Go back to that for a minute, Edwin.
Go back to No Wave.
Why No Wave?
Why? Because you made a record. You made a record called Orphans. And it became my all-time favorite record of all time, and probably still is in there. But
wow.
And I saw you at Max's Kansas City.
Wow, didn't know that.
Yeah,
Connective Tissue.
So you're traveling to New York during this time as well?
Yeah, because I was sort of in America at that time. Yeah, so I was sort of teaching at Penn State University.
Wow, teaching.
You were? Okay.
What were you teaching? How to be a weirdo who draws psychedelic things?
That is exactly what I was teaching. Yes.
How'd you get that gig?
Huh?
How'd you get that gig?
Through the art college. It was sort of like a student. When
student exchange.
They take exchange. It's an exchange idea. Yeah.
Well, I mean, college. But what city is in College Station? Is that what it's called? No,
Professor Exchange.
No. Where is Penn State? It's in central Pennsylvania. It's what?
Yeah, it's in Pennsylvania.
No, but what I know that. But what city is it in?
Is it in Pittsburgh or is it?
No. It's like central.
It's called Penn State. It's kind of like a.
No, I know, but
you kind of land in it, and you land in a football field.
I know that.
Really. It's kind of a football field with a college in it.
How long did you do that for?
Not long.
I don't blame you. Oh my!
It didn't. I think coming to New York sort of spoiled me, really.
It's called State College. That's what it's called.
State College.
It is the name of the town, Penn State, which is still not very close to New York. So you're there, but you're taking a bus to New York to see Lydia Lunch play?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. That was it. I just had to escape.
Maybe
I had to escape those Nittany Lions. They were getting my nerves.
I don't know what to say about all of that.
Yeah,
and at Max's Kansas City, I'm honored.
It was great, and I'll tell you the best bit of it was you pinged your plectrum at Robert
Christigo.
Yeah.
That would have been amazing. He hated me. He hated me.
I know, it's fantastic.
Robert Christigo, the writer for the Village Voice, hated everything I ever did. Amazing.
And you got him, bang, bing. Brilliant.
Did you realize that Penn State is #1 in ice cream academics?
Is it?
Really? Food science, yes.
Wow.
Well, that begs the question.
It is.
Edwin, Savage, my friend, what would your favorite flavor be?
Oh, a mixture of chocolate, Belgian chocolate, and
Okay.
maybe chocolate with peanut butter in it.
Woof.
Whoa, that's a little extreme for me.
I'm
Okay.
gonna tell you my favorite. It'd have to be like a gelato with dark chocolate and raspberry or mango.
she
But
does.
it'd have to be
Mango,
about.
huh.
It'd have to be really like 5 bites at the most.
Wow,
Tim, it's your turn.
that sounds
Oh,
yummy.
it varies. So, you have the classic American kind of parlor, and then you have a gelateria, that it really depends. I kind of like, call me weird, I kind of like pistachio, a good pistachio. I like a good strawberry, I don't know.
Hey,
I mean,
don't talk about some of my girlfriends like that. All right. So, Edwin, you're covering reggae for a while. Then for British weekly papers, there were a lot of great writers around at that time as well. That came out of Sounds or Melody Maker or New Musical Express. And so then after reggae, then what did you branch out into? Because your musical tastes were so diverse. So at the same time, you have your own comic strip, don't you? Was it in Sounds?
I did have that in Sounds. Yes, it was called Rock and Roll Zoo. In fact, that's how I joined Sounds, because Vivian Goldman, who was one of the editors of the magazine, the Sounds paper, we were sort of hanging, friends and stuff like that. She used to listen to a lot of reggae, and she was sort of teaching me about that as well. And then one day she accidentally mentioned that maybe Sounds were interested in doing a cartoon strip, and so. Did I know anybody? I said, oh, I do that. She said, oh, well, if you can, bring some in. I said, when? Tomorrow? I said, okay. So I just went home and drew all these cartoons of what I thought might work based on kind of the then punk scene. Drew them in a sort of sketchbook, and brought them in to the office the very next day. Full of, because you could do that then, because you're full of vip and zim and excitement and everything. Went in there, and the editor just really looked at them, ripped them out of the sketchbook, much to my horror, my precious sketchbook, and just glued them on a piece of paper, and said, well, "Can you do this? Can you do some for next week?" And that was it. I was hired, so I got a gig at Sounds doing Rock and Roll Zoo.
Did you get paid more? Was that just like more work for the same page? Or they paid
No.
more?
This was before I even got a proper job, at the paper.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow.
But then while I was at the, I used to have to do that, and I used to do the layout work, and then I did the cartoon as well, and the writing work. So you were sort of quite busy. You were kept quite busy.
I hope with a paycheck eventually.
But it was pretty good money, for that. I mean, more money than I'd ever earned in my life. You know what I mean?
Especially doing what you're meant to do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, but it was just good. I mean, you didn't really, in a way, you didn't really care. You were just sort of caught up in it all. The thrill of it all and everything. You were meeting people like, well, Frank Zappa and stuff like that. Go and interview Frank Zappa. Okay, I'll go do that.
What year was that?
I'd have to dig it out. Probably in the 80s. No, in the 80s sometime. Yeah, it was the time he did that record, Our Man from Utopia. The Man from Utopia.
Right. How long did you work for Sounds then?
From about 5 years. In the office. Yeah, in the office, 5 years. Yeah.
And were you still doing a lot of your own stuff on the side at that point? And is that how you actually started to do record covers for people?
Yeah, it was sort of through that, and meeting Paul Smith and people like that who were at Blast First, and then he was introducing me to people like Sonic Youth and things like that. And I was interviewing Sonic Youth, and then it was sort of came up, would I like to do a drawing for them, which turned out to be Death Valley 69.
Paul Smith, Blast First, I think one of his first releases, he worked a lot with Cabaret Voltaire, but he put out my first spoken word cassette.
Yeah.
Uncensored.
Yeah, so. Right. Brilliant. Yeah.
How often did you turn things down, or you're just like, I just don't like that, or I don't like them? I mean, it seems like you're pretty enthusiastic, and you kind of roll with the wave of things you're enthusiastic with. You ever run into walls or things like where you have like a real aesthetic lines with? And
I always think, well, let's give it a shot. It's either going to work or it isn't going to work. You know what I mean? And 9 times out of 10, it kind of works. I think you have to be kind of, even if you don't immediately like it on the surface, you have to kind of find something within it to like. You know what I mean? Something within it that will grab your attention, that you can grab hold of and maybe, you know, run with it, sort of thing.
So what was the first record cover you did then?
The first record cover I ever did was probably Streets, which was a compilation for Beggars Banquet. And it was like punk rock bands doing, you know, and I was also on it. I was also on it in the Art Attacks. I also had a band by then. I was in the Art Attacks, and they had a track on that as well. So Streets is what it's called. You can look it up on, you know, Discogs or something.
Yeah. So then people started coming to you, I guess.
Slowly but surely, yeah. I think it really kicked off though, really, with Paul. You know, Paul when we did Death Valley 69 and a few other things, you know, a few of the 12-inch things like that with Sonic Youth as well. It really did start kicking in. It kind of got interesting. It got interesting outside the usual comic strip that was being running in sound, although that was running at the same time, if you know what I mean. Yeah. So it was just an extra sort of elevation, a level, you know what I mean, that we took it.
So what's next on the plate here? What are you doing right now?
Well, I've just finished guest editing a magazine called Ambit, which was fun. It's like a
this
literary arts journal. Yeah.
This one,
That's
Ambit Pop number 247.
Yeah, that's the one.
Do tell.
I was very, 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 very honored when the editor, Kirsty Allison, asked me to be the guest editor of it. She said, what do you think about it? I said, well, I've never guest edited anything anywhere. So just as you were saying, you know, do I ever turn anything down? I said, no, I'll give it a go, you know, see how it runs. And just went for it. And that is a result you've got in your hand, really.
Right. And you've got some artwork in here. There's a bunch of stuff about the Gun Club in here. And it's basically just a fanzine style release. Where does one even get this at this point? Is this out of the UK?
It's out of the UK, yeah. I think you can get it from Ambit magazine if you look it up on their website. They've got a big website. The magazine's been going since 1959.
Amazing.
It was, you know, the early contributors to it and editors to it include an artist called Eduardo Palozzi, William Burroughs, and J.G. Ballard were involved with it.
Wow. Well. Has it always been in the same format?
Pretty much, yeah. It sort of stays within that format, yeah.
Because the format is like a smaller size, cardboard covered almost fanzine kind of thing with illustrations, with drawings, with interviews, with articles, with poetry. I didn't know it was going for that long. That's amazing. And it is number 247. So
yes, right. Yeah.
And then what about your giant compendium that's come out? Tell us about that.
That is I put that together during lockdown, really. I was commissioned to do a sketchbook, scrapbook type thing, and it ended up being a kind of a monologue in a way, you know. So it's basically all the work that I think was fit to print at this point in time, shoved into one single volume.
It's fantastic because it is a historical reference of a lot of the stuff and the various moods and characters that you've done. So it's a pretty good complete compendium. What's it called and where's it available?
It's called Rated Sav X, and it's subtitled The Savage Pencil Scratch Book. And I should imagine it's available on Amazon and all good bookstores. In fact, I'd rather you went to bookstores rather than buy it at Amazon.
Exactly.
There we go.
Are we
allowed to say that? Are we allowed to say this?
You can say whatever you frickin' want around here, honey. You got to know that's the truth. And so that was all assembled during the during lockdown. But don't you
Yeah.
mainly live in lockdown anyway? Did the lockdown have any? Did it have
Oh,
to change you at all?
I loved it. I thought it was great. I thought it was fantastic. You know, like nobody there, nobody in the street, no idiots to look at. It's fantastic. You know, everybody inside. You know, sort of whatever they were doing. I don't really know, but I really quite enjoyed it. I got so much done. I got so much work offered to me. It was great. I could work at home, and you know, well, I always do, really. So
well, that's why I was wondering if it was much different than your usual life.
It wasn't really, no.
Just less people on the street.
I'm in permanent lockdown. Bring it on.
I never leave my house unless I go on tour. I can ask Tim Dahl. People come to me. That's it.
Have you
allowed in? They come to me.
But since, you know, people always say it's like, since we're post-pandemic, which we're really not.
We're not. Dangerous.
I know,
not out there.
It is. But have you gone to any shows, or have you gone into any public gatherings?
Yeah. I go to the cinema and I go to shows. Not so many shows now, but yeah, I like going to art galleries still, and you know, that sort of thing.
Well, there might not be that many shows that draw your attention in anyway. I mean, cinema, yes, possibly art shows, yes. There might not be that many concerts that actually one even wants to journey into.
Yeah. Shall I tell you the shows I've been to see just recently?
Yes.
Let's hear
them. Sun. I went to see Sun.
Okay.
They played a gig for me because I did this show at the Atlantis Bookshop and it really was a show of all the demons that I'd created for them over the years since 2003, and so I put them all in a show, and they fantastically came over and did a gig. You know,
that was sweet of them.
Sorry,
that was sweet of them.
Oh, it was fantastic. It was just absolutely amazing.
How loud was it?
Oh, great.
Well, you've done artwork for them.
Oh yeah. That's what it was all about, the show. Yeah. The artwork I've done for them. So I went to see them, and then I was lucky enough to go see my favorite band at the moment, which is a death metal band called Blood Incantation.
Oh yes.
At the Underworld. I really love Blood Incantation, especially their new LP, What Nobody Likes, because it sounds like Tangerine Dream.
Oh yeah, I haven't heard the new one, but
it's
yeah,
fantastic, and it's got like all this rippling death metal underneath it, but nobody hears it.
Quick digression. Who are your top 3 death metal bands?
Death metal.
Yeah,
death metal, black metal. Follow which death metal.
Got to be Mayhem, isn't it? Black metal.
That's more black metal, but yeah. What I like Florida death metal. Do you like any of those? Deicide and
Morbid Angel.
Morbid Angels, of course, maybe my favorite one.
Yeah. Like I say, Blood Incantation.
Of course.
Beherit, I love him.
Okay.
I like this guy called Furze, F-U-R-Z-E, because he's absolutely loony, loony, mad, crazy, just got his own vision, and he just does it, and that's all there is.
Where is he from?
Probably Finland or something.
Okay,
I don't really know if he is. I don't really know, but it seems to be that the really crazy ones are from Finland.
Well, that's for sure.
Really like.
Australia's got some pretty insane ones too. Australia definitely has. But I mean, what about? I mean, I want to hear the rest of the shows you went to. But were you involved in checking out all the grindcore that was coming out in the '80s? I mean, going back.
Oh yeah. Death and everything like that. Yeah. And,
Carcass and all that stuff.
Yeah. And they before that, of course, we had Crass, who were my favorite.
Yep. Yeah, I know Crass.
Remain my favorite UK punk band.
Did you ever see Anal Cunt live?
No. Did you?
Oh yes. Oh yes.
How
yeah. I mean, I saw him twice. First time way long ago, and that was kind of novelty, and the second time was kind of tragic. You know, it wasn't really a pretty scene. Let's put it that way.
Oh God! Wow.
Yeah. Well, he died shortly later.
I would have liked to have seen it though. I must admit. Yeah.
I know you're a big fan of horror films and anything horror, Edwin. So, any great horror films recently that you've encountered?
No, nothing at all. I mean, I'm still looking. I'm looking back now at Corman stuff, like all that psychedelic Vincent Price Corman stuff.
Okay.
A bit pathetic, really, because everything's gone retro. I feel, everything has to sort of gone retro. The new horror film, the new horror, it's too sort of, I don't know, it's just trying to be so polite, isn't it? If you know what I mean.
I myself really enjoyed the Saw series.
Oh yeah, right.
I mean, that to me was the last great.
We interviewed Lloyd Kaufman, of Trauma, just a few weeks ago. What did you think of Blood-Sucking Freaks? That wasn't very polite.
Yeah.
I like all that kind of stuff. As long as it's got gore in it, I'm quite happy. I used to read Fangoria a lot.
Of course.
Magazine. That used to be like that was kind of like the gore version of Cream, wasn't it?
Well, was Basket Case made by a British director?
No, was it? No, I thought
no, maybe not.
That's a great film.
Oh yeah, and Basket Case too.
Yeah. Don't forget that one.
I mean, nothing scares me in films. This is the problem with it. They're never bloody enough. They're never gory enough. They're not scary enough. But Saw, at least they had implementations that were terrifying. Like, all right, ex-junkie, dive into a bathtub of hypodermic needles and find a key to let you out of the room. I just have to say, I find that fascinating.
So what about well, I want to hear the continued list of what you've seen, but what about the Japanese underground?
Really disappointing the end of the list.
Oh, but what about the Japanese? I mean, because you're talking about grindcore and death metal and just, well, with gore, horror, and extreme rock, the Japanese have quite a bit of all of that. Did you ever dive in deep into all that whole world? And of course, comics as well.
Yeah. I've never really been that fascinated by manga. I don't know why, really. I don't know, but I like Godzilla and I like
Bo Ningen. Love the band Bo Ningen. Nothing to do with
one of my all-time favorite movies of all time is Shin Godzilla. Did you see that one?
Shin God, which was one of the originals or something?
No, it's like a really old one. It's like not a really old one, a really new one, kind of about a few years ago. But it's just genius.
Was it made in Japan or is it like a Western remake?
Japanese, yeah.
Yeah, because
those Western remakes are terrible.
They're terrible. In fact, when I talk to Japanese people about it, they're like, yeah, Hollywood doesn't get it. Like that kind of fake guy in a suit with a small model town is what we like. Yeah. We don't want to see CGI. Like it's a total misinterpretation. It wasn't like we're not good at this. It's like we actually like it like this.
Would you like to direct a horror film, Edwin?
Yeah, I'd love to do that. Yeah.
Maybe write and direct.
How would I do it? I've got no idea.
I have no idea either. Maybe you should write one and then maybe you could direct it. I don't know. I have no idea.
Maybe you should write one and I direct it.
All right, we can work on that in the future.
We can both work on it. What you were saying about, just to get this one thing in, what you were saying about horror, which is quite important to me, as like you were saying, they don't scare you anymore. I don't think that's important, really. I think what fascinates me about horror is just like looking at the sheer weirdness of it, you know what I mean? And how I personally like the shittier the effects, the better, really. You know what I mean? The more pieces of cotton wool stuck onto their heads with sellotape and painted green, the better. You know what I mean? That kind of thing.
I know exactly what you mean.
Just looking at the weirdness of it all and how they did it.
Did you ever see Blood Diner?
No, was that good?
Yeah, I would check that out.
Yeah.
I would check out a book by somebody we've had on the podcast before, Kayla Janice, who wrote an amazing book called House of Psychotic Women, which is a thick compendium of how women in horror films, they've been presented in different ways over the decades.
Yes.
And American to British to Italian. And it really goes, and it also is in comparison to her own, the horror of her real life. It's a really mandatory book. It's called House of Psychotic Women. I really recommend it.
I'm writing it down right now.
I bet you are. And I hope everybody else is too, because she needs those sales. Yeah. She's a great mistress of grand horror. She just released a 10 DVD set of folk horror. So yeah, they're, which is very interesting. There's interesting stuff.
So what do you think about the marriage of just heavy metal and horror? I mean, what I can't get over is that parents were terrified of Ozzy Osbourne in the 70s. What the hell's that about?
Well, I could never figure that one out either, really. But nice guy from Brom, sort of burbling on about something or other. I don't know, but the cult surrounding Black Sabbath is immense now, isn't it? Don't you think? It's just
so immense. It's so immense that I covered War Pigs not that long ago with Weasel Walter playing every single instrument. I'll send it to you.
Well, I have to say, with all the kind of like sludge metal bands and nothing, or just like that kind of neo Black Sabbath thing, and you go on the road and some of my bands, they always there's like one in every town that's kind of the same. I'm like, guys, like the rhythms and the arrangements are interesting, but can we pick some other notes besides the blues scale notes? I mean, Black Sabbath kind of did that. Can we pick some of the cooler notes? I don't know. I guess the blues scale is what everyone's into forever.
Yeah. I think it's kind of this worship thing. They're really in a worship thing, isn't it? You know what I mean? Metal stuff, really. They have to worship the masters type thing.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I always say one reason why metal is arguably the most resilient subgenre within rock is because it's conservative by nature, and it really doesn't. It's also democratic, so it doesn't really evolve unless metalheads allow it to evolve. You can't be like, hey, this is the latest shit, even though it might be. The kind of metalhead community has to kind of give it the thumbs up. I mean, Gorguts, for instance, which have the classic album, what is it called? I brain just froze for a second, but it was dismissed, and then years later, that album was considered a classic. But I got to figure out what it is. Anyhow, but you heard my point. What about the rest of the shows you went to? Finish that list.
Metal people, just to finish off this list, metal people I find. I mean, I think when you go get a gig at them, they're just really nice people. You know what I mean? Really, really nice people, and they're all camaraderie and everything like that. But in a way, they're very, very conservative. You know what I mean? They are very. They think very. They really know what they want in a way. You know
totally. But also, the ones now are very nice. I mean, the kind of 70s metal, at least in the States, there used to be at one point kind of a scary dude metalhead, and they're either dead or they work themselves to death at this point, or they're in jail. If he like, the Trans Am, and I don't know what's going on, but
I mean, look, the only kind of metal I really like is prison metal.
Prison metal.
Oh my god!
All right, we're gonna tie this up.
Obscura is the name of the album by Gorguts I was referring to. Sorry, I had to. I was a little embarrassed.
The last show I went to was the Rolling Stones.
Whoa!
Without Charlie Watts.
Without Charlie Watts, unfortunately, but it was in Hyde Park and it was brilliant.
Well, I know someone that knows Daryl Jones pretty well, and he was like, and Daryl Jones loves that $1 million plus gig as a bass player, but he's like, wait, I've been in the Rolling Stones longer than basically anyone but Keith and Mick. How come I'm not a Rolling Stones yet? He's like, it's because I'm black. Like, what's going on here? I mean, like Ron Wood was kind of like in it immediately. He was a Rolling Stone, but Daryl Jones is still not a Rolling Stone.
I can't answer for them, but anyway.
I'm done with questioning them. And with that, I think we're just going to tie this up. Timmy, this is the Lydian Spin. The Lydia Lunch, Tim Dahl, Savage Pencil, cartoonist, musician, occasionally illustrator, general psychedelic artist, although he's never done psychedelics, because if he did, he might draw a straight line. For that, I'm sure. Thank you so much, Edwin Pouncey. Very nice to be.
Thank you very much indeed. Lovely to see you again.
I'll be in London in November. Maybe we'll meet up.
Okay, be beautiful. Take care.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you. Nice meeting you.
And you, Tim. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Have a good evening.
Bye.
Yes.